Welcome, Hudson Valley, to this week's edition of In Touch, the award-winning public affairs and issues program that runs across Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley radio stations. This week's guest is Ruthanne Becker, Senior Vice President of Rehabilitation Services at the Mental Health Association of Westchester, one of the providers that is partnered with Coordinated Behavioral Health Services. Their goal is to work with counties throughout the Hudson Valley to address mental and behavioral health treatment. We invite you to join us and listen to a previously recorded conversation between Ruthanne and myself here on In Touch. Hello, Hudson Valley. You're listening to another episode of In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's public affairs and issues program. We got a great episode for you today. With us, we have Ruthanne Becker, Senior Vice President of Rehabilitation Services at the Mental Health Association of Westchester, Inc. She's in to talk about coordinated behavioral health services and a lot of things that are going on in the Hudson Valley in regards to treatments and services about mental health, something that is so timely, something that is so pertinent, something that is so valuable to so many people here in the community. And we're really happy to have her on today. Ruthanne, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. No, this is such a big conversation to have. We did a lot of really awesome conversations back in May for Mental Health Awareness Month, and we were able to really get the conversation going in a very heightened way. And I'm happy to be able to continue it into the summer now, because mental health is more than just 1 month. You know, it is something that should be recognized at all times. And as we said right before we got on the mic, you don't know who's going to hear this at what time in their life and how it could really make some change and affect them. So again, this is a great conversation to be having today. So thank you. I think one of the best ways to just kind of break into this first, if you could give us a little overview on Mental Health Association of Westchester, and then from there, how that kind of ties in with the Coordinated Behavioral Health Services helping out everybody.
Sure, I'd love to. So yes, I'm a Senior Vice President at the Mental Health Association in Westchester. And our mission is to promote mental health through advocacy, community education, and direct services. So we are really able to work with adults, children, families in any way that our community needs support and assistance. Really, my message, and I think, I'll probably repeat this quite a bit, is that we want to make sure that there are no barriers to access for mental health. And that if you or a loved one or someone you're aware of is really in need of support or assistance, to reach out to agencies like ours is a really great first step, because we're going to help you try to get the support and service that you need. And if we don't, let's say we don't have that particular type of support or program you need, or if you perhaps have a different type of insurance than we accept, the main goal is to make sure that we get you to a place that you're going to get the services that you want. And I'm happy to provide, phone numbers throughout this that, people can call, and we'll just make sure people have a pen and they're ready to go when I give those numbers. What we know about mental health is that it's going to affect 1 in 4 Americans. So, I think that one of the silver linings that came out of COVID was a much more honest conversation about mental health and
Absolutely.
How everybody was doing. What we don't want to do is lose that conversation, right? People getting back to their lives, and obviously, many people are still feeling the effects of the pandemic, but we can't shut down the conversation about how important mental health is. And we can't shut down the conversation about connection and how important it is to have connection to other people, so that, we can work on improving our mental health. And whether or not that's your natural supports, your friends and your family, or whether or not that's reaching out to an organization, the message is reach out.
Absolutely. To be able to reach out is extremely important. One of the things, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I don't know if you're a Marvel fan, if you've seen any of this, Infinity War and Endgame. That came out right before the pandemic. And we were just watching. It was like, dude, imagine if something like this happened to us one day. Now, half the population didn't get quote unquote dusted as they did in those movies, but we did have something very equivalent to that, where it swept the whole world. And then years after, we are still feeling everything that was going on about it. What you said, we're much more honest and open to the conversation. But I think one of the biggest difficulties in having that conversation these days is that things are trying to get back to a quote unquote normal. But how do you really fully go back to something like that after everything that's gone on? You know, it's kind of like what they say about the hero's journey. The hero goes on this great quest and experiences all these things as a changed person and eventually goes back to where they all started, but it's never the same after that point. And we're at that point. It's not the same.
And anybody who was, raising children during during the pandemic and, juggling their own needs and their children's needs and working and trying to find paper towels and, the simple, basics of life and dealing with kids who were isolated. And we know that, there are high rates of depression and anxiety that, our kids are still struggling with and need, all kinds of support. I think there's always been a sort of us and them kind of mentality when it comes to mental health. And I think it broke down some of the walls between individuals who struggle with a serious behavioral health condition and those people who may have depression and anxiety. And it was like, oh, well, I might have depression and anxiety, but I'm not like the people who have a very serious, mental health diagnosis. And the truth is that it doesn't make a difference. If you're struggling, you're struggling. And if you need support, you need to go out and get it, because it's not about, the stigma we're hoping is breaking down so that people don't think to themselves, well, I can't identify with that group. I have to manage this on my own because I don't want people to know that I'm struggling. So, we're really, so happy that we can have conversations like this, that we can come on a radio show and talk about the whole spectrum of, behavioral health disorders that might be affecting, like I said before, 1 in 4 Americans. And it is a spectrum, right? There are some people who it really impacts their day-to-day life, and there are other people in which it's temporary and you get treatment like you would with any other condition, and you may go on and never have another issue with mental health. But what we want to do is make people aware that it is healthy and normal and positive to seek the help and support that they need. I think, again, for individuals who have had behavioral health diagnosis and may have had those diagnoses for a long time, they're used to a certain way of getting their support and services. Mm-hmm. And what I'm here representing, and again, I'm representing a whole bunch of different organizations that are sort of covered by an umbrella of coordinated behavioral health services, is that we are in the Hudson Valley. We are here. And we really have these very innovative and new ways of working with individuals who in the past may not have had the best experience with the mental health system. Maybe it didn't meet their needs. Maybe it was too medical model in that they were treated as a patient and not seen as a whole person. I am a vocational rehabilitation counselor by trade. That's how I entered the field. We know that the best way to help people with their mental health is to have them be working and living and loving and doing all the things like, the general population that may not have a diagnosis. But in many ways, individuals with behavioral health conditions have been told, no, you don't get the full package. You can only do these things because the stress or the pressure is too much. And I can tell you that, I've been doing this for I think this is my 30th year of working in the mental health system. And I have worked with people throughout their entire adult lifespan, and they have recovered and they are working and married and raising children. And, that's not, when I first came into the field, that's not what people were talking about. They were talking about keeping people out of the hospital, keeping them out of institutions. Well, the truth is that's just not enough. Yeah. We have to be able to help people understand they are entitled to everything, that that anybody without a diagnosis is entitled to. And that comes with making sure that people have opportunities to go to school, to finish school, to get a job, to get the supports that they need in their community. So we provide that. We will support people in finding a job, keeping that job, getting through college courses, graduating, or just going to a course in, I don't know, in IT or whatever they're interested in. Those supports exist. And we need to have people be aware of these services. And that's why I love coming to programs like this, because again, I never know who I'm going to reach. There's someone in your audience who had a dream to once do something, but got derailed because of their behavioral health diagnosis, and they can't figure out how to get back to those dreams. And that's the first thing we talk about with people. What are your goals? What were your dreams? What did you see for your life? Because we want to help you get back on track.
Absolutely. No, I hear exactly what you're saying. And I really am so glad that you brought up the stigmas and the us versus them mentality. I was reconnecting with a friend of mine not that long ago, and I've had issues with my anxiety for a while now. And when we were reconnecting, he was like, dude, when everything hit with the pandemic and whatnot, I started experiencing all these things that I never experienced before. Connor, is this the thing that you felt all these years? And it was like, based off what you're talking about, pretty similar. And it was like, dude, I am so sorry if I never treated you seriously enough in your feelings and whatnot. And he was a great friend. Don't get me wrong. He was a great friend, but it was just interesting to see that awareness and perspective from him, just to be like, wow, this is interesting. Coming back together, having this conversation and everything that's going on. And then another thing that you brought up, and I'm so glad that you did, about employment and about educational services, because that's the thing. Everybody is always looking for, advancing themselves through that. But it can be one of the biggest hindrances when you're trying to figure out who you are and what you're doing. So I'm glad that things are happening to make that better. Now, I'm curious, could you tell us a little bit about some of those support services and how people can look into it, get involved, and why they shouldn't be as scared about doing so?
All of the agencies that are, again, affiliated with coordinated behavioral health services have a wide variety of services. Like I said, there are many, many different supports and services for people. And so it's really best to make sure that you get in contact with, you can get in contact with them, but you can also look to make sure, what's in your neighborhood, what's in your community, so that you can avail yourself. One of the saddest things that I hear all the time is, I didn't know about your agency. I didn't know about it, because if you think about our culture, we don't, just like you were describing with your friends, maybe he had been curious about when you said, you had anxiety or whatever, but he probably didn't ask any questions, because he's like, well, that's I don't want to get in his business. As Americans, we don't like to get in each other's business. And, I'm just encouraging people to get in each other's business just a little bit more, ask the questions. Are you okay? Or, share that you understand what the person is feeling, because you feel the same way. It opens up a dialogue and it allows people to understand that they're not alone, and that we're all, like I said, 1 in 4 Americans, and that's, you have to think 1 in 4 Americans, and who's not reporting that they're having these issues. So the numbers are probably even greater. So I work with a lot of individuals, primarily people who are Medicaid recipients. They have an opportunity, because of their status, to be able to access a variety of different supports and services. However, I also want to make clear that these services are available to non-Medicaid recipients as well, and there are other programs that help them as well. Many of the agencies have grant-funded programs where it doesn't cost anybody a dime to get the supports that I'm going to talk about. But one of the things that we found out in the mental health system, and of course we sort of took the lead from the substance use field, which is peer support is crucial and important, and really sort of the building blocks of our programs. Individuals who have been involved in our system want to work with other people who have lived experience, so that you really truly understand what it's like to walk in their shoes. And so we've been able to create an incredible workforce of individuals with their own lived experience, some just mental health, some substance use, some co-occurring disorders, meaning that they had both issues, some with medical issues. And we've brought all these folks together to be able to provide support to people, because that was a very strong message that we were hearing in the mental health field. We want to work with other people who have recovered so that I can see them as a role model and they can help me navigate through the systems of support and care that are available. So that's almost one of the first things that most people ask for is, I'd like to work with someone who's had a similar situation. Once that person connects with us, we're able to connect them to all kinds of support. And that includes, like I said before, vocational, what we call psychosocial rehabilitation, which means we're going to really look at what your goals are as far as for your future. Where do you want to live? Where do you want to work? Where do you want to, what kind of friends you want to have? How you're doing socially. We're going to look at all the domains of your life to try to really pull together a plan so that we can figure out how to support all of those dimensions of wellness in your life. We also have clinical supports, which are mobile, so you don't have to necessarily come into a clinic. The clinician goes to you. So there's a lot of flexibility in the program. And the thing that was most appealing to me was that for many, many years, I have run programs where a person had to come in a certain amount of days or else they would not be able to continue in the program. In the program I'm describing, you can pick. You can say, I want to see somebody twice a week, or I want to see someone twice a month. And you're not going to be penalized because you're in control of how you want to get supported, because we genuinely believe that you know best what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you. So yeah, we have some people who say, can someone see me 3 days a week? And then we have some people who say, I'd like once a month. And that's fine, because everybody gets to choose their own way to recovery and their own way to reach their goals. I'm often in contact with people and they'll say, Ruthanne, how is this different? I've tried this program, I've tried that program, and I don't know, it just never works for me. And I'm like, because this is different. You're going to tell us what it is that you think you need to get, what does it look like? What, is it in the community? Are we going places with you? Are you coming into an office? What would work for you? And I think for the first time in many people's lives that we work with who have been dealing with a mental health condition for a long time, it's the first time that they understand I'm in control. I get to make those decisions. We don't, I think in the medical field, if you have a serious illness, there's a protocol that's described to you. But if you don't choose not to do that protocol, that's your choice. Individuals with serious behavioral health conditions have been told you're being non-compliant, and we want to flip that. We want you to decide, what does it look like for you? And then you get to decide, is this working for you or it's not working for you? Not the person providing the service. We're there to support you, not to tell you how you should be working on your own recovery. So it's a very different approach. But to get the word out that things have changed, and to and that we want feedback from people, and that it's still new, it's still a new concept for people. It's been really, really interesting making the shift from having a program where people come in every day to no, this isn't really working for people. It works for some people, and I don't want to, take that away. But for most people, and we want to encourage this, stay in your jobs, even when you're having mental health issues. Don't drop out of school. Get the support that you need so you can stay in school. Don't isolate from friends and family who want to, that want to help you. We can often be that bridger. We can help you. How do you talk to your advisor at school? How do you talk to your employer to say you might need a couple of days off?
Yeah.
If you got the flu, you take off some time.
Yes.
Right? You take the time off, you get better. If you're dealing with depression and anxiety, for some reason, it's like this belief that you can't take off that time and take care of yourself. But people often quit jobs because of that, right? They didn't want to talk to their boss about it.
Absolutely. It's a scary thing. It can be extremely isolating circumstance, or it can feel that way. One of my favorite songs, Matchbox 20, Long Day, I'm here all the time, I won't go away. And trying to learn how to figure out how to, live with yourself and live with that, and not to go into these different escapisms and not to pull back, because one of our first instincts are to pull back. And then when we pull back, we pull out of these things. You don't have your job anymore. You don't have the education anymore. That puts even more stress on you. And then trying to get back into it feels even harder. It's such a difficult thing to be able to do. Again, you're listening to In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's Public Affairs and Issues program. We've been speaking with Ruthanne Becker, Senior Vice President of Rehabilitation Services at the Mental Health Association of Westchester, Inc. We've been talking about a lot of the ways that people can reach out and get services, and how the services are much different than the stereotypical stigma of fitting oneself into a box. No, this program, everything that's going on with coordinated behavioral health services, really meets the individual where they are the best as possible to help them out with their needs. And I think that's one of the best ways of going about it. And I really appreciate that. Now, what is, as we wrap up here, as we were beginning to wrap up, how would people actually now take that step to reach out? Where's the best places for them to look right now? I know you said numbers, links, things along those lines, which of course we will have in the description of this episode, but could you tell us some of those resources, please?
Sure. Because I'm here really speaking on behalf of, agencies throughout the Hudson Valley, I think it's best if, again, the number that I give is Coordinated Behavioral Health Services. If you just say, I heard Ruthanne, or I heard someone speaking on the radio, and they said to call and we need some help, they're going to help you. So if everybody has a pen and they're ready to go, I'm happy to give the number, which is 845-615-9312. Again, that's 845-615-9312. And they also have a website, which is CBHS Inc., INC, so CBHSINC.org. And so people could go right to that website, and I'm sure, find whatever the contact information and send an email, send a phone message, whatever the best way is. I also, at MHA, we have a information and referral and an outreach and an engagement program. So again, if you need any support or services from us, you can call 914-345-0700. That's 914-345-0700, and extension 7404. But again, if you just call that number and press 0, someone's gonna connect you to the right person. So and if you're not in Westchester County, but that's the only number you remember, don't hesitate to call us. We'll make sure you get connected to the right people.
That's terrific. I love how interconnected it all is, and how it's just like, whoops, wrong number, click. No, it's not that. You are able to get everybody together because it is a cohesive effort. Something like this really is. It takes a village. It really does take a village to be able to help each other out. And I also think that's something that we've lost in some recent years, where it feels like it's all very individualized. Not even just with mental health, just regular day, you feel like you got to take it on by yourself, and you don't have to. Right. I really love that. Ruthanne, I really appreciate you being here and speaking about all this with us. Do you have one last little bit of nugget for our In Touch audience before we completely wrap this up?
I think I'd like to end almost where I started, which is, don't be afraid to have a conversation with people. Share your own experience, share what's worked for you, reach out to people. If you see someone who is struggling, they might be isolating, they might not be showing up for events that they would have shown up before. Don't be afraid to ask. And don't be afraid to ask, are you feeling depressed? Are you feeling anxious? Are you, struggling with your mental health? We should be having conversations like this, just like we would say to someone, wow, it seems like you're limping and you're struggling. Can I help? Do you want to lean on my shoulder so you can and get into this restaurant with me. That's, be understanding and be patient with people when they are going through something. They're not trying to, isolate themselves. They're not trying to be difficult, but they really literally may not have the words to say, I need help. So be that person who says, can I help? And then remember the phone numbers, remember this conversation, figure out a way to reach out to us, and we'll be available to you. So thank you so much. Because I really think that's important, for people to hear over and over again. Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid, honestly. And I love what you said about just like, here's my shoulder, here, I'll help you in. I think that's great. And as somebody who, only has started looking into counseling very, very recently, personally, I love it for the sake of it's this impartial third party that I'm able to talk to, and I'm just able to kind of get everything off my chest and be able to work things out. Even if you don't feel comfortable speaking to somebody super close in your life because you're kind of scared about that at first, talking to that third party is a great way to start. At least it was for me. And then that helped me have those conversations with those close in my life. So as somebody who's, starting to look into it myself, that's my advice as well. So,
right. And so it's because there's no stigma, or less stigma, there's definitely stigma, but it's because there's less stigma and you're able to have that conversation. You, like I said before, you have no idea who that might have helped.
Yes.
By you sharing your own experience and story, someone saying, well, if Connor can do it, I can do it, and what's better than that? I mean, really.
No, it's terrific. And hopefully, I'm sure there's going to be somebody out there that's going to take something from this. I know I certainly have. So, Ruthanne, thank you so much for being here on In Touch with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
This has been this week's edition of In Touch, the award-winning public affairs and issues program that runs across Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley radio stations. We want to give a big thank you to Ruthanne Becker. For more information on Mental Health Association of Westchester, visit mhawestchester.org. For more on coordinated behavioral health services, visit cbhsinc.org. Of course, all links and information can be found in the description of this episode. You can find In Touch episodes new and old on your favorite streaming services like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. That and listen on demand with your Townsquare radio station mobile app. Of course, you can still find all articles and audio under the In Touch tab on this radio station's app and website. Don't forget, we're also on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at InTouch_HV. Whether you have a topic you want discussed or you want to be a guest, the best way to contact us is through our office number, 845-471-1500, or email direct to connor.walsh@townsquaremedia.com. I've been your host, Connor Walsh. Until next time, stay curious, keep an open mind, and as always, I'm glad we get to spend some time